If you are a filmmaker and you're watching this, and maybe you've taken a break, maybe you're a little slow to create something. I know, I've been there. I've been doing YouTube for so long that I haven't made a short film in years. And I came across this video. I've been seeing a lot of videos around this topic, so I think my algorithm is kind of hinting at something there. But I just saw this and I was like, this is a real kick in the teeth for creatives who are asleep, for creatives who know what they want to do, know what they're passionate about, have gotten the taste a little bit, but have been slow to the roll. So I want to watch this video with you together, give my thoughts throughout it.
I wasted 10 years of my life waiting to be ready, waiting to have enough experience, waiting for the perfect moment to start creating my own thing. But you know who wasn't waiting? The people creating AI, which is why in the next few minutes, I'll show you not only why waiting to start creating could cost you more than you think, but also why this is the best time in history just to start.
So this guy, I don't know who he is. I honestly don't know who he is. I came across this video and it was called Creators, I'm 35. I can save you 10 years. I don't know if this guy's actually a filmmaker. I haven't watched this whole video, so I am authentically reacting to it with you all. I think on some level, the principles he's talking about applies to filmmakers. And that's why I'm watching this today.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Chet and I've spent the last decade as a creative director launching brands and products to hundreds of millions of people for $1 billion organization. But despite all of that work and all of that experience, I still never felt ready to just start creating for myself. That is until just 2 years ago when I turned 33.
This is a big deal because the filmmaking industry right now, especially with indie filmmaking, people just go into college or leave high school and they know they have a passion for it. They've made some short films, they're interested in it, and then they get really into cameras or they get really into writing, and then they try it for a little bit and it didn't really work out. They realize that life is expensive. They realize that the money barrier to creatives entering the filmmaking story narrative space is incredibly high, and it's incredibly difficult, and it takes a lot of hustle. It really does. And it takes years to craft your skill and to get good at it. And so a lot of people abandon it for like its incestly bred cousin. You know what I mean? So we're talking about like wedding videography. We're talking about like commercial filmmaking. And if you have a passion for that, that's great. But I would be willing to guess that when you received the fire in your belly of passion and interest for filmmaking, it was about storytelling. And it was about actual movie crafting, story craft, and not necessarily just being behind a camera, editing together a series of B-roll shots.
Now, 2 years later at 35, I've since attracted an audience of over 125,000 around my art and stories and built a business on top of that by sharing my creative experience and helping others do the same. Which brings us to today's video, because so many people I've spoken to these past 2 years, maybe just like you, are stuck in that same waiting pattern that I was in. Waiting to start your novel, waiting to share your art, waiting to launch that project or business. And now with AI on the rise, that waiting has evolved into paralysis for many of them, wondering if their skills will still matter.
So really he's diving into the paralysis of looking into the future of what AI is changing the landscape. He said he didn't start till he was 33. And but he also said that he shared his stories, like he's getting into it. So there's like there's a natural idea of it does take time, and so you should start. At the same time, he might have a little bit of a leg up because he had so much knowledge, so much experience, and so many stories to pull from, which gains interest around the idea that he's like an expert on the matter. So he actually grew faster because of it, I would venture to guess. But he's not wrong also getting into the AI issue with creatives.
There's even a point in starting now. But the reality is AI means more people than ever are going to start creating. And while some stay frozen, questioning if each path that they're still considering will still exist tomorrow, The creators who start building something of their own today are already laying the foundation for their creative futures. They're not waiting for perfect clarity about what's ahead. They're just starting, and the longer that you wait to join them, the further behind that you fall. But maybe not for the reasons that you might think, because the cost of waiting isn't just time. It's not simply measuring from point A when you could have started to point B now. The cost of waiting is exponential. That time that has passed wasn't just unspent. It was uninvested in ways which could since have been compounding in value. Every day that you're not creating, and just as importantly, every day that you're not creating content about and around your work, you're missing out on compound growth. Traditionally, working on your craft meant steady incremental progress. Your skills would improve day by day, your portfolio would expand piece by piece, and that still happens. But in today's landscape, there's an entirely new layer of compound growth available to creators who embrace it. See, when you create in public instead of in isolation, and when you lean into not just being a creative, but becoming a creator and building something bigger than just individual pieces, the math of how time is calculated changes completely. And
I would say viewing yourself as a creator as opposed to a creative is the big difference. It's the big difference between reaching your own audience, having a successful YouTube channel, being present online and adding value to the market, and actually potentially having big wins financially versus a creative, which means you're always working on other people's projects. You're always trying to capture someone else's vision. That's not bad. If you're like a meek, introverted person and you don't like envision or have like aspirations as far as your own vision for things, maybe that's the perfect environment. Maybe you're very satisfied and that's great. But I know, especially in the indie filmmaking space, people are here and they're listening and they're talking about this because they have vision for something. They're very opinionative and they're not just looking for a paycheck. They're looking to see their vision come to life. They have a very clear picture of what that looks like. It's extremely valuable for you to see yourself as a creator and not a creative, because a creative will be taken advantage of. A creative will be getting paid pennies for what they're worth. A creative gets put in a prison cell of someone else's idea of what you're good at.
with AI accelerating everything about how we create and share, this compound effect and potential is only getting stronger. Every day you wait isn't just a 24-hour day of creation lost. It's a day of exponential growth that you'll never get back. And I'll get back to why this is in a little bit, but if waiting is so costly, and deep down we all know that it is, why do we keep doing it? I think one of the main reasons that we wait is
I think it's fear.
Feel we need to master the right tools or approach first. Master Photoshop, master Blender, master storytelling structure, learn every nuance of character development, nail the perfect marketing funnel, understand every tactic or algorithm. We tell ourselves we'll start once we've figured it out. That way we don't waste time later, that we're just being sensible and economical, and that we're just going to measure twice so that we can only cut once. But the truth now more than ever is that these tools and techniques are changing monthly, even weekly in some cases. And
also, you could spend so much time completely perfecting one area, and you didn't think, because you weren't testing ideas, that you're missing an entire aspect that's going to take years to develop, where you could have been developing it simultaneously. In one case, marketing on YouTube, thumbnail, titles, right? It's not just about editing together a good video. It's about how you market it. And unless you're doing that, you're missing a very important key skill that must be developed in today's world.
by the time you feel you've mastered one aspect, 3 new essential skills and tools that you have to learn first will now be holding you back. But what actually matters, and the reason that I created my program Future Fundamentals, isn't mastering any of these single tools or techniques. is understanding the fundamental principles that stay constant. Whether you're creating visuals, writing stories, or building a creative business, the core principles of what makes work resonate don't change just because the tools do. And this realization can lead us to a bigger truth about creativity in the AI era. Since everything is constantly evolving, the real skill isn't mastery, it's adaptation. The ability to pick up new tools quickly and to understand their potential and integrate them into both your creative work and your business strategy. That's what matters now. So you can't wait until you've learned everything about creating or building an audience and business, because that's impossible now. The landscape is changing too fast. The creators thriving today aren't the ones who waited to learn everything first. They're the ones who started creating their work while they were learning, and just as importantly, who turned their own learning process into content that connects with others on the same journey, but just a few steps behind them. This completely changes how we need to think about creative experience. And not the creative experience as some abstract concept, but creative experience as in the actual hours, weeks, or years of work everyone says you need, because experience isn't linear anymore. Think about how progression used to work. You'd spend
I got thoughts. Okay. Progress isn't linear, right? So in almost every aspect of society, they try to set up a linear process for people who go to school to become a doctor. They are in school for around a decade. They do a couple internships, they get licensed, and then they practice. And then they make all the money. So that's a linear process of time to achieve the dollar amount at the end, right? To achieve the status at the end, to achieve the type of work that they want to be doing at the end. It's the same thing for law school, theoretically. With filmmaking and with creative in general, it's not linear. Unfortunately, for creatives in today's society, you have to be showcasing your education. You have to be showcasing your learning process, because if you don't, you're behind. If you wait a decade to do school, right, or to self-educate or to practice, and then you start building, well, you're still at zero. You're not going to be getting the opportunities. You're not going to be earning the money. You're not going to be reaching tens of thousands of people with your creative work. You're still going to be at zero, even though you're a master in the field. And maybe there are circumstances, maybe with him, that allows you to move a little faster. But again, you could be paralyzed by fear once you reach that point. And you just have the ability and the discipline, if you're doing it along the process, to showcase your education, to practice discipline, to practice regularity of content output. And it's going to be cringy at the beginning, right? It's going to be difficult at the beginning, and everyone is not proud of their starting work. But that's like what you have to do. You can't be stagnant practicing. You have to be public practicing, unfortunately.
There's mastering Photoshop, or perfecting your writing craft, or learning every detail of video production. That was the path to success. Pick your lane, master your tool, become the expert, fill a role in a linear pipeline.
And it's not just AI that's caused the difference in the market, it's the internet. It's platforms like YouTube, every video social media platform that's out there. It is unfortunately the entire creative digital media outlet landscape that's changed the process for creatives and filmmakers.
But that world is disappearing. The tools and platforms we use to create and share work changes so fast now that mastering any single skill isn't enough. What does matter is just starting, because when you start creating, no matter what it is, every skill that you pick up starts to unlock potential everywhere else, often in unexpected ways. Your understanding of storytelling suddenly makes your tutorials much more engaging, and your experience with audience building, for example, reveals what you should be creating next, or your creative process itself becomes valuable content that helps others while building your authority. But these combinations only exist because you started with that first domino, and In turn, they create opportunities that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Everything that you create can serve multiple purposes now. Your art, your writing, your videos, they're not just portfolio pieces anymore. And I learned this firsthand with my digital art on Instagram as Future Familiar. The crucial first step that I finally took.
And no offense to creatives out there, but a portfolio isn't what you think it is. Not in today's world. A portfolio are examples of success. And how do you measure success, especially for filmmakers, YouTube creators, video production creators? How do you measure success in today's world? Well, if you're working for a client, they want results, meaning you have to be able to create something that you show that there's results that came from that. Not just a really well put together video, but rather a market tested piece of content, meaning view count, meaning money earned. Unfortunately, that's the process. The barrier to entry and the difficulty level on this boss is getting extremely high, because it's not just about, I know how to edit, I know how to operate a camera. You have to be able to have your content proven, and that is what adds value to a portfolio. It's not just anything you've created.
At 33, right? That first domino that I knocked over in my case was to simply start to create my own work and to begin to share it under a brand or a business or a project name like Future Familiar. And after just a couple of weeks of showing up consistently and creating and sharing under that project name, I started to gain momentum with some initial likes and follows, and that foundation was essential and everyone needs to start there. But the real transformation happened when I took the next step and started creating content about my creatives. And I created tutorials of how to do it yourself, and I gave behind the scenes insights of why I made the creative decisions that I did, and I told honest stories about my wins and losses. And when I started doing that, something fascinating happened. Companies and clients started reaching out about content that I'd made weeks or months earlier because they had come across videos that had just been quietly building momentum. Now, for a bit more context and to put this into more of a full perspective, these opportunities came from content on YouTube that I had created weeks or months prior that still had fewer views than a single Instagram post of my actual art had likes. But the takeaway isn't to drop everything and to focus on YouTube or to abandon your art to become a content creator. Those videos, tutorials, and courses that were bringing those opportunities only worked because I'd already built up real experience creating and sharing my art consistently. And it's because
I don't disagree with him. But for creatives, the most lucrative, most promising platform is going to be YouTube, because that's the best way to gauge market. If you've noticed, if you post stuff on other social media outlets, everything is about reach. Everything is about autoplays. Everything is about how the algorithm served you a piece of content. Also, they don't pay anything good because there's not a paying audience to get behind your work. Long form video content is still, and probably will be for a long time, maybe forever, the maverick area of focus for creatives. People that focus entirely on short form on other social media platforms, it doesn't work. Because even if they have something go viral, it translates to maybe on certain platforms like TikTok, at most $100, right? Maybe $200. That doesn't change your life financially. Also, the value of those followers are not much because they were just scrolling and the algorithm gave them your video. Whereas if you're on YouTube, it's measured on views, long form videos, not shorts, translate directly to money. So I had a video that didn't get millions of views, but got 200,000 views. That translates to $1,300 on my channel for that video. That's more money. Also, YouTube's platform is still a click to get the view platform, which means you have to learn how to gauge your audience and earn the view before you receive it. Whereas all the other platforms that's based on reach, they're just arbitrarily giving your video to people with reckless abandon. And so there's not a really strong metric to show success, and there's not a loyal audience behind those other social media platforms. So although he's right, yeah, it's good practice. The best practice is going to be in long form, and it's going to be on YouTube, because that's going to show the greatest amount of growth and actual skills earned in the process.
Because I started there, that this content was able to take what was otherwise ephemeral social media posts that would fade away in 24 hours and transform it into something that was lasting. Let's think about it this way. When I share a piece of art on social media, it might get attention for a day, but when I do that and then I turn that same piece, that same experience into a video about my process or a deeper dive into the story behind it, that content is now able to keep working for me. It's able to reach new people months later and to build deeper connections with them and to create opportunities.
Also, again, YouTube is like the only platform that doesn't have a cap on time limit, right? If you created a good evergreen video, it will continue to get views months, years down the road, versus Instagram, TikTok that serves it to a bunch of people for a week, a day, and then it just stops.
Long after that original post has faded away. Now, most people think that they have to choose between building, designing, or creating something real or becoming a content creator. Like teaching and sharing your journey is somehow less genuine because of what that content creator title has come to mean for so many. But we can't let that connotation distract us, because building something that compounds in value requires both. It requires your art or writing or whatever it is that you create to become the foundation, and the content on top of that turns that foundation into leverage that compounds in interest over time. So while others are continuing to hesitate, taking maybe that first step into creating, but then getting stuck at the thought of becoming a content creator, you could be building both: the work that moves you forward and the content that turns that forward momentum into a lasting opportunity.
So for YouTubers, I'm going to share a little bit about my thought process for this. For YouTubers / filmmakers, indie filmmakers, okay? How I've been meditating on this for the past few months. I've been on YouTube for a while, and I've created something like 5 or 6 films in my life, but I've taken a long break from making films. And so how I've been meditating on this is in a big way is I need to get back making films, and I need to actually up my YouTube content, because I got to do both. You really have to do both as a creative content creator, unfortunately. And it doesn't mean you have to be educational on the practice, but you do need to be creating a inside niche. Like for filmmakers, you need to be creating content that's going to be interesting to filmmakers while also creating the films you want. Part of that is so you have an audience to transfer over to your films, because it's very difficult to grow an audience solely on independent film stories, right? You have to build interest around something that a community cares about. And so for me, it's going to be content regularity at a really high amount for a while, and I'm trying to build hype and interest and lessons learned as an indie filmmaker. That's what I care about, because there's so many creators out there, probably him as well, who teach you the how-to. I'm not necessarily here to teach you the how-to. I'm here to make sure that you get the kick in the pants, the kick in the teeth, you get the excitement, you feel that fire in your belly start to boil up again. That's what I'm here for. And I hope that's encouraging to you, because that's what gets me excited, talking about news, talking about experiences, talking about perspectives around creative filmmaking for the benefit of everyone's passion level getting up. Because if you don't have a passion, if you don't have a kick in the teeth, if you don't have hype around what initially, when you were younger, was the dream in your mind, then you're going to settle for this mediocre prison of creative expression through someone else's vision.
Now, if there's one thing that you take away from this video, I hope it's that you understand that the perfect moment to start doesn't exist. The perfect moment to share your work doesn't exist.
That's also with kids. I got one kid. The perfect moment to have a kid doesn't exist either. You just got to do it.
The perfect moment to start building your creative business does not exist. And with AI transforming creative work faster than ever, with new tools and new techniques and new possibilities appearing weekly, that perfect moment only gets more impossible to find. But at the same time, this constant evolution that makes timing impossible also makes starting easier than it's ever been. The barrier to creating your first thing, to sharing what you learn, is now lower than ever. What matters isn't waiting for the perfect moment. What matters is starting the momentum that compounds into something bigger. And look, I get it, today isn't perfect, but it's the only day that matters right now, because tomorrow becomes another day of exponential growth you either gained or lost forever. The only choice that you need to make today is whether you'll wake up tomorrow as someone who has already started investing in their future, or as someone like me who waited too long to start and lost years of potential growth that they'll never get back.
What is the lessons learned? The lessons learned is get started. Because the process that you're going to have to follow is incredibly difficult, and it's incredibly an uphill climb, and you're not going to be ready for it, and you don't need to have that expectation to be ready. There's also an element of fear here. You have to overcome your initial fear by getting started, because that fear, as the longer you put it off, it will grow and grow and grow into a monster that seems impossible to fend off. And the only way to accomplish and get past fear of a specific creative endeavor is going to be doing it. And then you see it's not as scary as you thought. I hope you really enjoyed that video. This is a Patreon exclusive video that I decided to release publicly for the purpose of letting you know what's going on over there. So either on YouTube memberships or on Patreon, links in the description of this video, you can watch it. And you can watch a whole bunch of content that I'm crafting that's very similar to this video. So if you're an indie filmmaker, if you're a creative, especially around video production, and you want inspiration, you want hype, you want interest to be reborn inside of your belly, then you should go check out the Patreon or join YouTube memberships. It's only $3.99 a month, $4. We could start interacting over there with each other. See you next time.